This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so today we'll spend some time for the understanding of SRE. So, as a SRE engineer, if you are decided to contribute to organizations in this domain, then we should know what is SRE, what are the roles of SRE, what are the tools we use for SRE, what are the functions we have in SRE which we do for the projects and organizations, and also some of the key jargons which we should aware as SRE engineers. So yeah, that's the session is all about. We should spend some time to understand some of the terminologies used in SRE and things like that. Okay, so the question is, what is SRE? So SRE, this is the one of the keywords which has been coined by Google. So Google has introduced this concept, and Google has introduced this concept because somewhere the DevOps was not able to deliver the some of the things which we were expecting. Means when we say organizations, software organizations were expecting. DevOps is a very good thing, and if you implement it in a real way, but many times organizations has failed to deliver or implement the real DevOps, and they have found lots of challenges while implementing the DevOps or as well, where DevOps demands everything to be done by one team, and for many projects it was not possible. So that is where the Google has introduced SRE and practice it themselves, and then published a paper, practices, process, and all. So other organization also can implement it. So it stands for site reliability engineering. If you break it down, site means your application, your website, right? Reliability means uh, you want to bring, you know uh, reliability, availability, durability, quality, dependability to your product application. That's your objective. If your application is not reliable, you are not doing your work. And engineering means whatever you do, the bring the approach of engineering team, just like a developer mindset, as if like, okay, I will not patch manually, I will do some through some coding. So whatever I do in order to maintain the production, I will write a code, just like engineering teams are doing. I will do the same thing. I will write a code, I'll plan for the work, I'll write a code, I will test my code, and then deploy my code, and that will do the operations work and things like that. So bringing the engineering approach in the work. So that is all about SRE, site reliability engineering. So yes, it's an approach. Okay, it's not a tool, it's not a something which you can just buy it and apply it. It's an approach, just like DevOps is approach. SRE is an approach. DevSecOps is also an approach. It's an approach to operations. Means how best you can implement or you can do operations. Operations means managing the environments, production environments, running your applications, make sure that it's up and running, no downtime. All the SLAs, SLOs, and is maintained and kind of things. So this is the approach, best approach to operations, which uses software as a primary tool for managing system. So yeah, as I said, you need to bring the engineering approach in this, where you have to plan for any work, develop code, write a code, you know do the testing, deployment, maintenance, and also, uh, if you are a ops, still you'll do manually things with some tools, small tools and all. But if you're SRE, you will try to automate everything through the coding, and you'll follow the engineering approach what other software engineers are following. So yeah, as per the Benjamin Traynor Sloss, he's the founder of Google SRE. He's saying SRE is what happens when you ask your software engineer to design a operations team. So when he says software engineer, that means the person who's writing programs, testing the programs, deploying the programs, and things like that. So that's the approach you need to bring in the operations team. Okay, so what are the responsibility of an SRE organization? So let's say you are a SRE engineer, and someone will ask you, hey, what is your responsibility as an SRE engineer? Then you have obligations, you have a commitment to make sure that your application is available all the time. You remember that you are working in the production environment, so you are available. Your main focus should be on availability. Application should not be down, and if it is down, you are not following, you are not performing your responsibility. So that is the one thing. Second most important job what you have is performance. So it's not about only availability of applications should be up and running, of course, but also it should be sufficient. I mean, it should be having the no performance issues. That means not be slowed down, because if it will slow down, your users will not come. So that's the second most important responsibility. But apart from that, again, few more responsibility like secured and stuff like that. Also, whatever the issues which is coming up, in order to maintain the production environment and operations, you have to do the incident management also, and then you have to keep on monitoring observability and things like that. So these are the primary responsibilities of any SRE organizations or employees. Okay, so what you do as an SRE engineer? So as I said, engineering approach. Remember, so you have to write a code now. So you cannot do manually anymore. Actually, so you have to be on call many times. You need to lead war room situations where your application has some problems and you need to fix it. You need to do the post-mortem, something has gone bad, and you need to do the post-mortems, right? You need to automate some of the stuff which is manual and implement the best practice. So these are the activities of an SRE team which they do that. So now, when in order to perform all the responsibility, what are the things you're going to do? What are the things as a SRE engineer you are going to do on a daily basis? So one of the tasks which you will perform, which is eliminating toil. Okay. So what is a toil? So in SRE domain, toil is something which you do manually. Toil is something which you do manually, and for that work you need to automate it. That's one of the work which you start doing it, automating the task which you are doing manually or repetitive. Apart from that, you also need to manage the service level agreement. So I will discuss a little bit more about the SLIs and SLAs. But yeah, there is an agreement between your application which you are running and the customers which those who are using. So your company is committing, okay, my applications will be up and running this much of percentage, and if I'm not able to run this much of percentage, I'll be liable to pay you such this and this. So this is the kind of agreements between you, your company, your application, and the customers will have it. And your job is to manage this SLA, SLI, SLOs, and stuff like that. So that's one of the things. So this is called managing risk level, agreed service level without explicit tolerance. And again, third, handling failures, anything which you get it, incident reported, anything bad in the system and operations, you have to manage it. You have to post-mortem it, you have to fix it, you have to come up with RCs and things like that. So these are the functions of SRE individual. So these are the some of the jargons which we have for SRE and SRE engineers in terms of responsibility, activities, functions, and things like that. But many people are confused about what are the difference between ops and SRE, because the same what we do in SRE almost something similar to it sounds like we do in ops as well, right? So what is the difference? So the fundamental difference here is, uh, if you look at this slides, you have a business, your organizations, your company primarily had two teams earlier. development team and operations team. Okay, so development team, one way the business is asking, hey, give me the new feature all the time, give me the new feature, implement this, that, and whatever it is. So the focus for the development team, engineering, you can call it development team or engineering team or whatever it is. When I say development team, then your programmers, your architect, your testing team, everyone is coming under one roof. Okay, so their main objective is to give you the new features. But at the same time, the same business is asking operations team, hey, give me the reliability. Then make sure that application should not be down and it should be up and running 24 by 7, and then it should be performing well. It should be available. So everything should be, it's opposite, right? Because when you implement the new stuff, reliability will be an issue, because new things, it takes some time to get stable and many things, right? Lots of gaps between the ops team and development team which is happening, your troubleshooting skills, environment, some dependencies issues. So many things, it is for the new things, it takes some time to get it reliable. Why? Because there is a gap between the ops team and development team, and that is where things get delayed. So the things which you are supposed to release in, let's say, 1 month or 2 months or few months, uh, you find it is getting released in a longer duration, and that is a headache for the business. Because nowadays, let's say there is some issues in the Uber, there is some issues in the Uber, you can't wait for the 1 week to get it implemented, because it's impacting your revenue, right? It's impacting the user experience of your applications. So you have to do it right now, you have to do it effective, but the structure has been set up in a way it takes some time to implement the new things to the production. There's a huge gap between the ops team, how they works, and the development team. So that was the challenge which we had, and SRE trying to fill that gap. So here the focus for these two individuals are different. So if you look at this, sorry. So development team is focusing on design, development, testing, and acceptance, whereas ops team is focusing on the support, maintenance, and capacity, and where they are trying to fill the gap. So between the delivery, so the development in ops team meetups during the delivery, and after that, handshakes happen, whatever that you are supposed to make it live in the production, they have only interaction during the delivery. So if you look at these two teams, they have a different goals, different skill set, different tools, and there's no common ground which you can speed up to delivery. That is a challenge what we have. So in this, there's a lots of you say like disadvantage in order to maintain this model, when which we had a no design input, very limited automations options, infrastructure level monitoring you do, but not everything you implement, and then you accept it. Go or no go decisions you do after that, operations conflict guaranteed between the devs and ops. And there is a reactive support, so something goes wrong, then only you support things. So that this kind of stuff which you have in operations team. Now what to do? So that is where the Google is suggesting, hey, let's do one thing. uh, because if you have ops team and the development team, there is a gap, and because of there's a gap, we are not able to deploy our products on time, and immediate delivery, we are not able to do that. So what we should do, so let's change the culture and then start involving each other. So when we say change the culture means what? So earlier, if you look at this, SRE team were not involved during the design and development and acceptance testing, but now SRE team is involved. If you look at the development team also, they are involved in the with SRE team during support and capacity planning. So now teams between the development and SRE is integrating. So if someone asks you, hey, what is the difference between SRE and ops team? Then you say ops team typically are not involved during design, development, and acceptance testing with the development team. But if you see the change in approach, change in the mindset, SRE team will do that. Development team will allow that to happen. So I'll put it in this way, very simple way. Let's say you are a SRE team, ops team, okay, or any team, whichever you want to call it, SRE team or ops team, whatever you want to call it. And if let's say development team invite you and say, hey, I am developing a new feature which will be rolled out in the next month, and I would like to help me to, I would like you to involve in the design. So that way, you will come to know, okay, this is the feature, these are the programming language, these are the platform, these are the dependency, these are the kind of limitation, these are the kind of advantages. All these things you will come to know in design also. So that way you will be prepared and set your mindset accordingly. But not only a design, I will also involve in the development also. I'll tell you, okay, these are the platform we are using, these are the compilers we are using, these are the interpreter we are using, these are the libraries we are using, these are the kind of traffic we are having, all these things, these are the kind of inputs we are having, these are the way to do the sanity, everything we are involving you, so you are confident enough to say that, okay, yeah, I have idea. And then during the acceptance testings also, I'm involving you for all these criteria. So that way, if some business is coming, an organization is coming to you and saying that, hey, we need to now that it has passed the acceptance testing, can you deploy in the production? Then SRE team would not say no. Why? Because they have all the details already in place. They know the design, they know the development, they know the what are the acceptance criteria, and they were ready for it. They were ready for the infrastructure because they've been involved at the initial stage only. So everything is there ready, and there's the time for a deployment. So that way the friction between the development team and SRE team will be very less when they are involved with each other at the very initial stages. Are you getting me?
Yeah, Rajesh. So there
Yeah.
is one question here. What is the difference between the DevOps and the SRE?
Yeah, so that's a good question actually. So that I'll come in the next slides actually.
Okay, okay,
Got
okay.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that way, but not only SRE will involved with the development team. Development team also will have a privilege to interact with SRE team directly during the support and capacity planning and all these things, because they are the guys who develop this application. They know that lots of things which SRE team needs. So basically, what we are doing here, Google is saying, hey, let's not work in isolated environment. Development team focus on the development, SRE team focus on the operations, but you guys talk to each other, you guys know each other, you guys got involved in each other's activities. You don't own that, don't do that, but involve in it so you have a certain knowledge, you can be prepared for each other and support. And so ultimate goal is to deliver faster. That means any bugs which is coming, any features you want to roll out, I need to make it in a production, I want to make it live in a production in the next couple of hours actually. And that is a goal every organization wants to transform into SRE. There are definitely lots of tools we have, lots of techniques we have, lots of approach, lots of principle which we need to learn as we go. Okay, so this is the difference between ops and SRE. So again, see here, ops, SRE. Okay, so now what is the difference between DevOps and SRE? So I just stated
Rajesh, just
here.
one question. Uh,
Yeah.
See, operation team will be doing the same kind of operation, right? As you said, like SRE will be also doing. So I know like SRE will be involved in the doing the development phase, but still he will be doing that operations, right? So then, what will be the
Yeah.
difference between
Yeah.
operations and SRE during that time?
So here is very thin difference. That's what I said. The goal, ultimate goal of the business is to roll out the any feature or bugs in a very less span of time. Example
Mm.
like Uber. Okay, that's a goal, end goal. But in reality, ops teams work in a different world. Development team works in different world. And there's a gap so much because it takes a weeks of time or months of time to deploy in the production. Why? So that gap need to be filled out. And that's where that we have a practices of SRE where we say, hey, now we will integrate and discuss with each other. So that's what I was saying. If you want to transform the ops to SRE, what you have to do, you have to start involving with the development team from the design itself. If you want to convert SRE ops to SRE team, development team need to also contribute towards the support and capacity planning. So this is a kind of win-win situation for everyone. Ultimately, your objective, what was the objective? The application should be live in a less span of time. It should be available, it should be performing, it should be secure, and things like that. And for that, what you need to do is just a change in approach. That's what we are saying. Are you getting me?
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So now the question is, what is the difference between the DevOps and SRE? So see, DevOps is very good. So many, as I said, many organizations have failed to implement DevOps, right? DevOps, and the reason why, because you have a development team, you have a SRE team, you have a DevOps team, you have a QA team. So every sort of teams you have it, and that's a really failed implementation of DevOps. The real DevOps team basically owns everything. That's the thing. Real DevOps team owns everything. So when you call it a DevOps team, it include your architect, your development, your testing team, and your operations. So everyone is called DevOps in that conceptual way. So here there is a DevOps team, and business is asking everything. Hey, give me the new feature. At the same time, give me the reliability. And the DevOps team is saying, yes, we will give it to you. So there is only one team, one mindset, one culture, and that is called DevOps. And everyone is are coming under the DevOps team. So the problem which we have when businesses ask everything to one team, and remember earlier we had this team isolated before coming to the DevOps. Earlier we had isolated. So how it is involving? Let me give you the conceptual information. So initially, if you look at this 20 years before, we had a waterfall model. In waterfall model, we had a multiple phases: planning phase, development phase, testing phase, and implementation. I mean, production phase, operations phase. So for each phases, we had the different teams. So earlier we had a multiple phases, multiple teams got rolled out. So now you got an architect team, we got a development team, we got a testing team, we got an operations team. So we got a 4 team. Later on, we realized, okay, we are moving to the clouds and all stuff like that, virtualizations and all. So let's and that delivery is taking time. So let's merge these multiple tools. So what we did, we converted a waterfall model to agile model. If you remember, agile model, what we did, we combined the development team and testing teams together, architect teams all together, and then we started calling, hey, your guys are will be called engineering team or development, whatever it is. So now we say development team means dev plus QA together. Okay, and then operations got isolated. So that's agile. Now DevOps brought it development team and operations team together. That means when you call it a DevOps team, you have a dev plus QA plus operation. Everyone is together under the DevOps conceptually. Okay. So then business will ask everything. Hey, give me the both the things. Give me the new feature. Give me the reliability. But DevOps team is saying sorry. Why? Because they're saying, hey, we are just implementing the DevOps. Okay, we are learning this concept. We are many of us are in DevOps training because we have to do as a team everything. No new feature until we have automated the release process. We think the app down, so we are adding more monitoring. So that's a because DevOps team is doing everything. So when you ask a new feature, uh, most of the time DevOps team say, hey, it will take a little bit more time because lots of things to do in order to become a real DevOps, and that is where that this is failing basically. So if you see that DevOps is doing everything, DevOps team doing design, development, testing, acceptance, delivery, support, maintenance, capacity planning, everything. They have a shared goal, overlapping skill sets, consistent tools, and common basis. So they have everything. Whereas SRE team is not doing everything. Remember, they are owning only the support, maintenance, and capacity, but involved with during the design, development, acceptance, testing, and delivery. So there is a difference here. You see, DevOps, a team who is owning everything from design to capacity planning. SRE team who's owning support, maintenance, and capacity, but involved with during the design and development. So that is a difference actually. Got it?
Yeah, Rajesh.
Yeah. So this is a SRE. So yeah, there's not certain thing which is common between the SRE and DevOps. For example, they all both the teams focuses on the quality and velocity, automation and tooling, and removing silos. But DevOps has a broader remit. Significant culture changes is required in order to adopt the DevOps, whereas SRE is not that I mean, that significant changes you required for that. So just operations, you start involving with some main tooling, process practices, and all, and you become SRE. Operations to SRE. So it's more prescriptive. Feasible internal migration is possible. So it's a way to do that. Again, if you could implement the SRE successfully, probably one day you can become a DevOps team in future, because as I said, many teams have failed to implement the real DevOps because of many reasons actually. So yeah, development team and operations team both combined in a DevOps team, and whereas here in SRE, development team is development team, operations team got transformed into SRE, and when you call the transformation happens only when you start interacting with each other and some of the tooling practices. So in terms of technical skills, yeah, DevOps team need to know everything from the programming till the operations, whereas SRE team need to know limited things. You don't need to go to the application coding and stuff like that, but infrastructure coding will be there as part of it. Platforms will be maintained by SRE team, but at the same time development team as well. So some of the common basis will be there. Okay, so any questions on this now? Understanding the SRE operations, DevOps, and things like that.
No, it is good. Yeah.
Okay, so now what are the key tenets of SRE? So let's say you want to become SRE engineer. So some of the things we have to start learning it. And the four function, if you remember, three function I said, which was one is eliminating the uh, you know uh, um, what do you say? I forgot this man. Toils, yeah. So eliminating the toils, and then service levels, and third one is maintaining the incident management and things like that. So how do you do that? So yes, you have to start doing all these three work: eliminating toils, working on service levels, managing failures. So how do we eliminate toils? And this is something which you have to practice it. That's what I say. Approach is makes you from the ops to SRE. So if you look at this is the problem here in SRE. The problem is logs is filling the disk. That's the problem. Your logs is filling a disk. How do you solve it? So typically SRE, if you're an operations team, you log in weekly, delete old logs. Simple. This is the ops approach. But the problem will happen, you have a new release, and a new release, new product, new microservices also filling the disk very on daily basis. Then you got frustrated, and then you wrote a script. You said, hey, let me wrote a script, and which will delete the logs, and you can run on the cron or something like that. So still your ops. But what happens after that? The issues become so severe because you started running application not in one server, you started running in 50 servers. So now this script will not work. Else you have to deploy this script in 50 servers altogether. So probably you did the cron job and then supported all this thing. Okay. So till you set up a cron job, this is operations. You are still ops team. So the question is, how do we transform into SRE team? Instead of doing all this thing, you become a SRE team if you start talking to dev team. Understand this. Till cron job phase is you are a ops team. But the moment you start talking to dev team saying that, hey, we have these fundamental issues where the logs are growing a lot, and for that scalability issues is there, and we have lots of hours we spend on to clean up the logs. Can we introduce some logs configurations in application itself where we can minimize during the deployment itself? So instead of writing so much of logs, it will write a less logs, or maybe clean up the logs or some process which will reduce the logs. So when you are talking to dev team for fixing these issues, this is the integration. There's a communication happen between the dev team and operations team. That's where you become a SRE team. So there is a very thin difference between ops and SRE. Are you getting my points here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the one of the way. How do we maintain the service level? So typically ops team, what we do, you have a service level maintain, new release, bug cause latency. Means when you deploy the new applications, what happens? It of course you have a bugs in that, which will compromise the latency. So what you did in order to avoid that, because it's not fine tuned as per the performance testing, something like that. So what you did, you increase the capacity, which again increase the cost, and then report these issues back to development team, right? So new release will be coming some config issues which can cause the outages. You fix the config and restore the service level, okay, and block new release for agreed period. So this is something which you did. Remember that here, in order to support the new release, because new release brought the many issues like bugs, outages, latency issues, and all, and you blocked the release because you didn't want it to compromise the SLAs. Remember, SLA is most important one when we delivered it. So that business is getting impacted now. What to do? How do we deal with it in a different way? How do we deal with it in a way where you maintain the SLAs, SLOs, and the same time you make a release? How do you do that? So you need to involve with the development team in a much early stage. So let's say this will not happen when you involve at the during the development, design, capacity planning, acceptance testings and all, because you can give your input saying that, hey, this will should be done the performance testing for this much of user, avoiding the latency. You should do these are the kind of I want to try it out during the testing and see that if there is a problem in which will incur during the production. So these kind of things which you can avoid it when you are SRE team. Again, few more examples we have and things like that. So yeah. Okay. So again, there's one definition, simple definition in order of SRE. It's what happens when you ask a software engineer to design and operation function. I think again this is a duplicate one. So same thing. Okay, so did you understand that what is SRE, what is DevOps, what is ops and things like that? Any questions so far? Any questions?
Rajesh, just one question. See, DevOps will be doing the deployment task, right? So
Everything, they will do everything.
everything. I mean, the SRE also involved in that part. I mean,
Yeah,
development
of
and
course.
all.
Yeah. Deployment, yeah, deployment. See, major task of SRE is deployment. Actually, one of the important tasks in the production.
So
They
when
only do.
SRE is doing, then what will be doing the DevOps team? I mean,
So that's the problem here. I was saying no. There is a
Mm.
failed implementation of DevOps has happened in many organizations. That's what I said. You will find a DevOps team and a SRE team. There is no use of it. There's a failed implementation. So
Mm.
conceptually, they are doing wrong labeling for the team. Okay. Maybe your DevOps team is not a DevOps team. They call it a DevOps team, but they may be build and release team. Maybe.
Okay. Correct. Correct. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
Earlier it used to
So
be build and release team. Yeah.
yeah. So we have confused with the terminologies and failed implementations.
Mm.
So that's what it's a confusion. Many organizations they have their own teaming and labeling structure. It's very difficult to understand sometimes.
Correct.
Okay, so the question is okay. Now time to work on to working on the SRE. I mean, as a SRE engineer, what you'll do. So one of the first important tasks which you'll do is automate and eliminate the toil. Okay, so what is a toil? So toil is something which is labor intensive. That's something which is require lots of hours to do, repetitive in nature, and then that can be automated by script or automation, some tools. So the definition of toil is very thin. Anything you do as part of your work, anything, if it is required many hours to do, which is in repetitive, you have to do daily basis or weekly basis, and this can be automated easily. That is a definition of toil. So that you should you know try to automate it. Now what is the overhead? Overhead for any SRE engineers is like something which is not related to the work but something which you are doing and spending your hours. Okay, because see, you work 8 hours in a day. Out of 8 hours you work on many things. So you are supposed to work on toils, you are supposed to work on the incidents, post-mortem, RCAs, you are to support to work on um, overheads also. Overheads means hiring, let's say you're involved with the interview process, some meetings, some fun activities, some some training, some self-assessment, something like that. So it's called overhead. So ultimately you work for 8 hours and out of this you have some overhead also. So there's sometime also you work on strategic work. Strategic work means you spend your time for the production readiness reviews, early engagement, and continuous improvement program. Also, you spend some time. So basically, your overall time spent on overhead, toil, and strategic work. So these are the three types of work you do in 8 hours, correct? Daily. What happens? What happens when you do not fix the toil? You see that toils is something. Remember, toils is something which is repetitive in nature, takes multiple hours, and also it can be automated. So if you don't fix the toils, and then it will grow to a limit where it will compromise the strategic work. See that? That means if it is compromise your strategic work, that means you are done. That means you are dead. Your project is dead because you cannot add any values to the project. So if you don't fix the toil, it would stop your future work, and that is a dangerous. And that is what we are saying. Hey, focus on the toil. Okay, so it's very important to work on the toil. So look at this through some examples. So here there's one incident has happened. App is not responding. So someone has raised the ticket. SRE login into the server, did some manual work which is repetitive, can be automated, and then you restart the server, start working. So here what happened when some problems is got reported, you did the reactive support. It's a low in value and scales linearly. That means once it scales to the multiple server, your problem will also go beyond your you know the hours what you have in the fixing. So how can you bring the SRE approach here and to do the toil management? So is it a toil? How do you decide? I can do this, yes. Automation can do this, of course, yes. So you have to bring the engineering approach. Whether it's strategic, this toil, should I implement it? Is it strategic? Will it fetch the high values? Will it add some motivations to me and all these kind of things? You have to bring the engineering approach. Okay, so what to do? So look at this, how SRE will move this one. So here, app is not responding, raise a ticket, log in the server, restart the process. Till here you were upstream, but SRE team will say, hey, let's listen, let's migrate to containers, Kubernetes containers, Dockers, and stuff like that. Why? Because if you scale one system, I'm doing 10 systems, I'm doing, but what about if I'm running on 2000 servers in future? This will create a problem for me. So let's move into the containers. Why? Because containers has a health check inbuilt. I don't have to do restarting the process. Automatically containers will restart itself. So you have to again spend some time, significant time in the runtime change. You have to migrate into some learning activities, Kubernetes and all kind of things. Use platform capabilities and things like that. So this is the kind of toils you need to fix it and to become SRE. Okay, so this is the one thing. Also, you should make sure that sorry. Also, you should make sure that your toil for your overall work should not cross more than 50%, because if it is crossing the 50%, then basically you are compromising the strategic work, which is not good for the project. So yeah, you should plan very wisely and things like that. But you know what, it's not about everything sorry, it's not about everything you should automate. Every toil is not a bad toil. Why? Because you should also, before fixing that problems, you should identify whether it's a toil, right toil or not, and you should measure the benefit of it. How do we measure? So, for example, there is one problem here you have. Okay, there is one employee which has a joined, and in an organization, many employees joins every time. So, what typically you do? You add their access to the GitHub, some Azure subscription, some Slack channels, some systems read only, some add to system Y as a contributor, and want to automate this. So now you have to understand whether it's exactly the 12 which is worth of automating it. So first you will identify and measure that the whether we should work on it. So let's say uh, I'm just putting in this slides only discussion. Understand this way. Can you automate Git to GitHub repos access? Yes, API is there. Azure subscription API is there. Slack API is there. System, maybe API is not there. Add to system Y contributor, maybe API is not there. So you have to check that each of building blocks and see that which are the can be automated, which cannot be automated. And after that, once you identify, okay, which can be automated, which cannot be automated, or maybe it required lots of tasks, you should identify how much time it will take to automate. And then after calculating the number of hours, you see that if I spend, let's say, 20 hours on this task, is it worth to spend it? Because 20 hours if I do manually to automate, and it's taking 5 minutes to do, 20 hours is we spend to automate this one, and 5 minutes I spend doing performing manually, values of it, and then you should decide whether you should work on or not. So this is something which is I'm saying, you should always try to find out the calculation, how many teams member you have. Let's say 6 member as per the slides. How many days you work? 20 days. So total number of days, working days, how many you have? 120 days. How many out of it, many team members on call, and then some toils, and then you find out how much engineering budget you have for automating the toil, and accordingly you decide all these things. So let's say, just rough work, you have one toil onboarding, one toil patching, one toil provisioning. How much effort is required to automate? 1 day. Patching 2 days, provisioning 1 day. But let's say you don't automate it. So how much frequency is occurring onboarding every month? Let's say 5 times. Patching 2 times, provisioning 3 times. So how many days is taking? So onboarding overall is taking 5 days in a month, patching 4 days in a month, provisioning 3 days in a month. So that means which one, if you look at the slides, which one you should automate first? Onboarding or patching or
On
provisioning? Onboarding, right?
onboarding. Yeah.
Yeah, but there is a catch. You identify the how much time it is consuming, but you did not calculated the how much time it will take to automate it. So let's
Correct.
put it in this way. Here, onboarding, let's say it will take 65 days to automate it, where we had a 5 days toil, 40 days to automate it patching, and 10 days to automate provisioning. So now which one you will automate it?
Then go with provisioning.
Correct. So try to understand that. So whatever you work in SRE, what I'm trying to say, whatever the toil you have, the work which you have manually doing it, identify whether it's a toil or not, measure it and budget it out, and then start working on it as per your team capacity. So this is one of the work which you have to do a lot. You need to write a code, of course, but you need to write a code for the right automations. So that's the important one. So you have to estimate all this thing very wisely. I'll just skip some of the stuff which is giving the same calculations in a different context and something like that. Okay. So yeah, second, so one of the fundamental work which you have to do is toil management. You have to automate everything with the right proper planning. That's a one work. But what is the second work? So you have to, second work is service level, managing the service level, and in that case you have a great monitoring, and nowadays we call it observability. Okay, alerting and all, you have to manage it. So yes, typically in a service level you have SLI, SLO, SLA. SLI stand for, I'll put it in this way. Let's say there is one applications and there is a customer. So your company sign an agreement saying that, hey, I promise you your applications will be up and running 99%, let's say, and your response time will be 3 millisecond, 5 millisecond, whatever it is, all this thing. So simple. So agreement between the customer and your organization for your application. So then you have to set up SLO, because 3 milliseconds it says, or let's say 5 milliseconds it is in SLA contract, then you should monitor 4 milliseconds. If it is reaches SLO, your objective should be 4 millisecond SRET. So that's a objective, because it should not breach your SLO. If it is breaches SLO, it breaches SLA's next movement, and then SLA, if it is breached, then you have to pay for it. So how do we know whether it's a 3 millisecond or 2 millisecond or 5 millisecond? How do we know? So that's coming from the SLI. So when you set up monitoring tools or observability tools, various monitoring tools, infrastructure monitoring, log monitoring, APM monitoring, all these things I'll discuss in a upcoming session with the tools and all. They will give you the matrices, they will give you the traces, they'll give you the logs, and using that you can define the SLOs and accordingly maintain the SLA. So that's one of the most important work which an SRE which is a SRE team is have to is doing basically. So they have to maintain all this thing. You will get availability, latency, throughput, everything, and you need to set up SLOs based on the SLAs and things like that. So yeah, it's a pretty straightforward. SLA is something like agreement which your organization make with your client and user. Then SRE team set up SLOs, objective, in order to maintain SLAs. And then how do you get SLI? So it's a real number about your system, infrastructure, matrices, traces, and all kind of things. So these are the things you have to set it up. So and you have to maintain it. And again, if there is any disagreement, it's there's a problem. Okay, so there's one more keyword which has been used a lot in SRE, which is called error budgets. So error budgets are acceptable level of unreliability of service before it falls out to compliance with SLO. That means error budget is something like, okay, errors are coming, but how many users are facing these issues? Let's say you have 100 users which is coming and using your website. Out of which, what is the number of users who's having the no service? One, two, five. If it is 5 out of 100, 5% error budget. So something like we have to decide how much error budget you have it. Accordingly, you have to decide how much time you have it. So you have to set up SLAs and SLO very wisely. You cannot say, hey, I will have a 99% of SLAs, I'll sign it, whereas you have an error budget too much. For example, let's say, just to calculate and understand that, you should be very wise in order to decide the SLA. There is a ops team, there is a business, there is IT management. Here, IT management saying what happens at 98%. Ops team is saying, hey, 99% availability agreed, I can make it. Ops team. And then business saying, why not 100%? And then you need to calculate this, what it takes to 100%, right? So let's say these are the SLAs. SLOs you set 99% of the request within a 2 seconds. 90 response time, 90% of the request within zero point 0.5 seconds, and success rate 99.9% of requests with the 2x response and stuff like that. So how it takes, so you look at the slides, it's very wonderful slides. So if you set up your SLO 99%, let's say response time 99% request within a 2 second, that means you have a 403 minutes to do incident management or any issues which is coming in the production environment. You have a 7 hours in a month. Remember that, 7 hours a month. But if you commit for SLO 99.9%, and if any issues is coming up, you have 40 minutes in your hand to solve that issues. If you have issues 99.9, SLOs 99.99%, you have only 4 minutes time to solve that issues. And if you maintain 99.9999%, you have only 24 seconds to bridge that gap. In how many minutes? 20 days, 40,320 minutes. So what I'm trying to say is, be wise whilst you decide the SLA and SLOs, because it's not about what you commit, it's all about what you can deliver as a team. Are you getting my points?
Yeah. So SLO is basically the implementation to maintain the SLA, is it?
No, SLO is like a kind of numbers you set for yourself, your team basically. For example,
Oh,
I'll give you in a simple way. You say, hey, my I'll give you in a very odd way. SLA, you have assigned a contract with 95%. I mean, just for discussion's sake, 95% is WhatsApp, by the way. So 95% is SLA you signs to the customers. So now 95% if breaches, that means if your application is down more than 95, more than 5%, that means you are breaching the contract with the customers. Then you have to pay for it. So what to do? So SRE team typically set their objective 94%. Oh, sorry, 94%. Yeah, 94%, no 93%. Why? Because if it is breaches, sorry, my bad, 96%. So if it is breaches 96%, then only it will reach to the SLA, right? So I will set up a 96%. So the moment it breaches the 96%, I will get the notification, I'll take a action and I'll correct it. So that way. So SLO is objective. SLO is objective of your team. which you defined with the context of SLA, not to reach to the SLA numbers, because once it reaches, you have a problems. So
Got it.
you
So
define the SLOs.
basically, you're taking the precautions or the steps before it reaches to the SLA, right?
Right, yeah. So that's the SLO. You decide, and then SLO you monitor using SLI, which all this SI means indicator, the real number. Okay, I decide the SLA, I decide the SLO, but what is the real number? So real number is coming from the monitoring tools, observability tools, and that's called SLI. So what I'm trying to say here is need to be very wise when you commit for SLA and SLO, because you need to calculate how much time you have in your hand in order to respond if any issues are coming up. So that's what this table is all about. You got it?
Yeah, got it, guys. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so blindly do not commit anything. Plan for error budgets, and then accordingly you do that. So if you see that this is the good visualizations here. Let's say if you commit for 99.9%, that means let's say you commit for 99% of request within 5 seconds. That means you have in your hand out of 20 days 40,200 minutes, you have only 40 minutes. That means your error budget is 0.1% outside of the 5 seconds. That means in hand you have 40 minutes. Be very careful when you define objectives. Again, if you say 97% of request within 5 seconds, then you have a 1210 minutes. So here, that way you have to decide the error budgets actually. Okay, so this is something which you have to again map it up accordingly and decide the SLO and SLA. Now, SLIs come from all the monitoring tools which you set it up. I'm just running some of the slides to avoid that too much of discussion. Yeah. So now, after that, the third work which is done by the SRE team is incident management. Okay. So remember that if someone will ask you, hey, what are the functions of SRE? Simply say automating the toil. First thing. Second thing, managing the service level. Third thing, incident management and postmortems. First thing what we do, we discussed, we identify the toil, we measure the toil, and then we bring the engineering approach to work on the toil. Service levels, what do we do? Set up observability, we get SLI. Based on SLI, we set up SLA with the customer. Based on the SLA, we set up a SLO. And then last one, which we are talking about, is incident management, on call and postmortems. So here, how do we do that? So typically, the team has to be structured. Someone is incident commander, someone is communication leads, someone is ops leads, and things like that. So how do we define the incident? So incident will have a standard response, playbook, and so on. Some past experiences, issue complexity, and some of the investigation time and impact and all kind of things. I'm not talking much in details. Why? Because nowadays, if you use any tools, for example, Jira or ServiceNow or PagerDuty or Opsgenie, these are the templates you'll find at their website itself. Just you need to fill this. So they all are aligned with SRE practices. All the tools nowadays. So, but you should know. But just for the so typically when any incident occurs, IC got appointment, OL continue investigations, lead appointed, some issue doc created, issued, then some more investigators get added, and then incident doc updated. So these are the roles of multiple folks who's working on the incident, and you need to, as a team, you need to decide who's going to work in what way. Someone is commander, someone is ops lead, someone is communication leads, and all kind of things. Okay, so how do we work on the incident, any incident which you have got it? So first thing, you have to work on the tries. Then tries means something like basic troubleshooting and see that what exactly you can get the data. Examine, diagnose, test, and cure. So these are the phases of incident which you need to work on it. Tries, examine, diagnose, test, and cure. Okay. There's one also process. Any if you have worked on the incident, you have to also produce the post-mortem. So post-mortem documents which will come in this fashion, where you have a dates, author, reviewer, and what are the action items, what are the timeline, what are the lesson learned, what are the problem summary and executive summaries and things like that. So again, I'm not emphasizing this much too much, because any tools which you use, they have a post-mortem templates, uh, and you will have that data anyways. But yeah, you need to understand. Remember, as an SRE engineer, you will have to do the incident management. So any issues which is coming up in the production environment, one incident will be created. Then there'll be team who will be working on that incident, and then you need to submit the postmortem and RCA document on top of this to close that RCA. So that is something which you have to do that. Okay, so some of the other concept which I'll just ignore it and so on. Okay, so now let's you know conclude this discussion, and let's try to understand this way. So what we discuss about, first of all, what is SRE? Okay. Then also we try to discuss what are the roles of SRE, what is the function of SRE, right? What are the responsibility ability of SRE? Okay. Now then we discuss about SRE versus ops. Then also discuss about SRE versus DevOps. Then also we discuss about the what are the real work. So one of the work which we do is toil management. Second work which we do, service level management. Third thing we do, incident management. Correct. In terms of toil management, first thing you see that identify the toil. Identify the toil. Identify the toil means a toil which can be automated, repetitive in nature, and all stuff. Then measure the toil. Measure the toil means how much time it will take to automate it, and what are the values it will bring if I automate. And then follow the engineering approach. Follow engineering approach. When say engineering approach means that toil you need to design, code, test, and then make it live. So these are the whole things you have to do. Correct now? All of you?
Yeah.
And then service level management. First thing, set up observability. Uh, you set up observability. Why? Because you get all the matrices. So observability and monitoring is the same thing. I mean, I call it observability because it's enhanced keyword. So you collect the logs, matrices, and traces. All this thing This is called SLI, service level indicated. So you gather this, and based on that gathering, then you have a SLA contract with customer. This is important. So SLA you have to set up a very wisely. You cannot set up anything, because that's where you have to set up observability first, what you have, and then you set up SLA, and then you set up a SLO and alerts based on that, and then keep maintaining this SLO. If any alerts trigger, it become incident, spelling mistake, right? Incident. And then incident you assign with some team, some structure, CLOL and communication leaders and incident reporter and all kind of things. And then you have to come with post-mortem document, and then you need to work on it and submit it. And then sometime post-mortem document correlate to the toil. So again, this process will have to continue doing it. Remember that in order to do all this thing, you need to also involve with the development initiative, what they are working on it next thing, what kind of project they are coding and they are trying to bring, what languages they are using, what platform they are using, how they are testing, what configuration they are having, are they aligned with the production environment or not, the new module which they are developing, are we having the sufficient budget, capacity and kind of things, any challenges. So all this thing you have to keep helping them in order to decide, so that the moment when we have a delivery, you don't say, oh, we need a time and stuff like that. So these are the overall the work which SRE team will be doing in an organizations, and they are expecting in a greater way. So, did you understand this, all of you? Any questions which you want to ask, which you want to get it clarified?
Basically, just one thing I understood, like there is very like little difference between DevOps and SRE. It is not that much big. So generally, in organizations, do they prefer both, like to have DevOps, or they ask DevOps guys only? Like in general, I'm asking. They ask DevOps guys only to take care of the SRE role or monitoring or any kind of that role.
Okay, so now see, earlier I was talking about the right conceptual definition of DevOps. Okay, and in that way, DevOps team is doing everything from the
Yes.
programming till the operation. But
Oh.
actually, now I'm talking about the practical side of it. I work with
Hmm.
many organization, and I have
Hmm.
seen the DevOps team. So the format of DevOps team, sometime what I have seen, the build and release team, they call it a DevOps team. Sometime
Okay.
what I have seen, team who's taking care of the production, they don't call it SRE team, they call it a DevOps team. Okay, very few
Okay.
organizations have seen a DevOps team which includes everything. Everything is
Oh.
very rare. So here it's very confusing, because which company you are joining, the definition will change. So that is a confusion. So if I give you the standard practical things, uh, and nowadays anyone calling anyone DevOps, actually, whether you are
Okay.
working or not working. So that is a
Okay.
problem. Yeah.
So it is generalizing things. They have generalized it quite a lot,
Yeah,
right?
and that's the reason I have repeated multiple times. Many organizations have failed to implement the DevOps, right? DevOps, and that's where that Google also experienced something similar. So they introduced this SRE because they thought, hey, let's not combine the everything in DevOps, because it's a great thing, but it's very difficult to implement. So let's do
Yes.
one thing. Let's have a development team separate. Let's have an operations team separate, but evolve these two teams so they can talk very frequently, integrate and change in their mindset. So whatever you do, do it with the engineering approach. That means in operation also bring engineering approach. In
Hmm.
development, anyways, we have an engineering approach, but they should talk to each other. Why? Because ultimate goal is, remember, I want new feature to deploy within a few hours. At the same time, new features should be available, stable, reliable. and that's the objective. In order to do that, you have to do all sort of things and bringing the cultural change actually.
Okay.
Got it?
Yes, yes, got it. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so I'll stop the recordings.